everybody. Welcome back to episode 2 of Man Mindset. So, today's episode, we're going to be talking about the cost of saying yes. Basically, the cost of never being able to say no, right? And I don't know about you guys, but for a long time, I felt like I had to be the guy who always showed up. No matter how exhausted I was, no matter how much I had on my plate, just saying no didn't feel like it was an option. I didn't even think about it, honestly. It was second nature. It was automatic. If somebody needed help, I got it. If work needed me to stay late, no problem. If a friend needed a favor, of course. I was going to be there no matter what. And at first, it felt good because I felt reliable. I felt needed. I felt important. Like people could always count on me. And that had to mean I was doing something right. That's the thing about always saying yes, though. It doesn't start off as a bad thing, it actually feels like you're winning. People appreciate you for always coming through. You get a reputation as the one who's dependable, and you pretty much become the guy that can handle anything. And for a while, I convinced myself that that's what being a man was. That being strong meant able to juggle everything without breaking, that taking care of everyone else was my job, and there was just no questions asked. But what I didn't realize is how quickly the weight adds up. Because here's the thing, the more you say yes, the more people expect from you, right? And that's when it stops feeling good. So at first, it's small. Somebody's going to ask you for a favor. You're going to say yes, then another, then another. And then before you know it, you're carrying the weight of everyone else's expectations like there's no off switch. I used to tell myself, it's fine, I can handle it. This is what men do. Or I would tell myself, I'll rest when everything else calms down, right? But it never actually calmed down. The pressure just kept growing at work, at home, everywhere. And I didn't even notice how much it was draining me until one day I looked around and realized that hit me, that something hit me, right? It just felt like a punch to the gut. No one was showing up for me the way I was showing up for them. I had trained people to believe that I didn't even need help, that I could handle everything and that I'd be fine no matter what. And you know what? Honestly, the truth was that I wasn't fine. I was tired, I was burnt out, I was frustrated, and I couldn't really even be mad at anyone because I was the one who had set that expectation that I was always going to be available. So if you've ever felt drained, overworked, or underappreciated, if you've ever been the guy who keeps pushing through even when you've got nothing left, then this episode is for you. All right, let's get into it. So, the pressure to always say yes. I feel like saying yes for me was my default setting. I felt like that's how it was most of my life. If somebody needed help, I was the one saying yes. If a coworker needed me to cover their shift, I'd volunteer. I'd be the one to help out. It just felt good. It wasn't even something that I thought about. It came to me second nature. It was automatic. But I never actually stopped to ask myself, do I have the energy for it? Do I have the time? Those questions never even crossed my mind. And the other thing is, growing up, I thought that's what being a real man was, that you have to be available, you push through even if you're tired, right? And for a long time, I wore that shit like I was like some sort of badge of honor. But now looking back, it was an honor. I think it was more fear because deep down I was afraid that if I said no, people would stop relying on me. I was afraid of letting people down, afraid that if I even admitted, if I admitted that I was struggling, it'd make me look weak. So I kept saying yes. And honestly, now that I think about it, even when I joined the Navy, I feel like it got worse, like by tenfold. I became the guy that everyone depended on, counted on if they needed me to cover an extra watch or step up to stand an arm watch, or if, even if I was feeling sick, didn't matter. I'd go to work and I'd push through. And I told myself that this is just part of the job. This is what being a real leader looks like. This is what real men do. And I felt proud of it. I felt like I was proving something to myself, to my team, to my leadership, basically to everyone around me. Look at me, I'm the guy, I can handle it all. You can always count on me. But the thing about always showing up for everyone is that after a while, you stop showing up for yourself. And then one day, honestly, I didn't even feel anything at all. I wasn't proud. I wasn't strong. I wasn't even frustrated. I just wanted to give up. I just felt numb. And that's the part no one talks about. That slow burnout just creeps up on you after years of saying yes to everyone but yourself. that feeling that you're just running on autopilot, doing what's expected of you, but not really feeling anything anymore. That realization that the very thing you thought made you strong is actually what's making you drain the life out of you. And if I wish I had realized that sooner, I would have done things a lot different. All right, next I want to talk about a personal story. So there's those moments in life, right, that hit you different, almost like a punch to the gut. Everything around you fades and all the stuff you were stressing about, it doesn't matter anymore. That was a night that we had one of those moments was a night that we had with our daughter. So, to give you some background, my daughter was born with some serious medical needs. She's got a trach tube, a feeding tube, and she's had multiple surgeries. I want to say we stopped counting after her 30th surgery. And taking care of her was just a part of life. It was our whole life, right? We have routines, backups, emergency plans, backup to the backup, checklists everywhere. We got it down pat. We got it covered. We've gotten extensive training from her medical team. So we're good. At least we thought we were good. But this particular night, my wife shook me awake, and I could tell something was wrong just by her face, just by the way that she was telling me that something's not right with our daughter. So I jumped out of bed and ran to her crib, and my heart dropped. Like I saw her pulse ox, her O2 levels were dropping, her pulse rate was low, and even when we shook her, she wasn't being responsive. She was in this like deep, deep sleep. Um, Her face was turning pale, and the first thing I did was I grabbed the suction device to suction her trach, but nothing came out. And I tried again, but it just felt like I wasn't getting anything. And Merlin was reading off the O2 levels, and they were still dropping. She called 911. She grabbed another trach, and we tried replacing the trach that was there. But when I tried to push it in, I was getting resistance. And in that moment, I just thought, man, this is how it ends, right? For a second, everything just froze, and I was just praying to God, don't let me lose my baby in my own hands. Um, so for some reason, I felt like the right thing to do was just to push that trach in as deep as I could. So I pushed it in deeper, and I apparently cleared a block. There was a blockage of mucus that had built up, and that was basically making it harder for her to take in any air. So as soon as I pushed it in, she gasped for air, and her chest started rising more. Her color came back. And at this point, I was just standing there, heart pounding, just watching her breathe, watching her O2 levels come back up slowly. The paramedics had rushed in and pretty much took over, and they took her to the hospital to keep her under observation and watch her vitals. And I still remember, I'll never forget just sitting in that hospital room and just looking at her tiny face while she was sleeping. And I realized something, that I'd been saying yes to the wrong things. Like earlier that day, that same day, I'd been stressed about work, about emails, about things that basically just felt so stupid in that moment while I was sitting there in that hospital room. I realized I'd been giving everything to people who wouldn't even remember my name in a few years, because that's just how the military is. It's a wheel. It's going to keep on rolling. People transfer constantly, go their separate ways, and at the end of the day, you're just a statistic, right? If anything happens to you, you're everybody's replaceable. So I was thinking about this while my daughter was there, just fighting for her every breath, right? Um, and yeah, that night something clicked. It just all the yeses I was giving away so easily, they were costing me the moments that actually mattered. And I wasn't willing to let that happen again. So I'd say that was definitely the moment that changed everything. All right, let's shift gears real quick. Let's switch it up for a second. And I want to talk about Michael Jordan, AKA the GOAT, right? When people think of MJ, they think dominance, they think six rings, MVP, three-peat. Basically, the guy who never backed down, never folded under pressure, and always showed up when it mattered. But what did people forget? That pressure actually almost broke him. See, for years, Jordan wasn't just carrying the Bulls, he was carrying the entire NBA. Every game, every season, every single time he stepped on that court, people expected him to be perfect. They basically wanted him to win, to lead, and just to be the best. And for a while, I'd say he lived up to it. But then his dad was murdered. And for the first time in his life, basketball didn't matter. And he did something that everybody knows that pretty much shocked the world. He just walked away. The greatest player in the world at his peak, just gone. People were pissed. The media lost their minds. How could he do this? How could he abandon the game? How could he just quit? But here's the thing, he wasn't quitting. He was empty. He had nothing left to give. For years, he had been saying yes, yes to the league, to the fans, to the expectations, to the weight of basically being the greatest in the world. But the one person he hadn't been saying yes to was himself. So he stepped away. The man had to take a break. He took time. He gave himself that space to breathe. And when he finally came back, he was stronger than ever. That's what made his comeback so legendary. So, what's the lesson here? Even the greatest need to step back sometimes. If MJ, the most competitive guy on the planet, could say, listen, I need a break, then so can you. And the crazy part, his legacy didn't suffer because he stepped away. I'd say, if anything, it got even bigger. So the next time you feel guilty for saying no or for needing space, for not pushing through exhaustion just to keep up with expectations, remember MJ. Because sometimes the strongest move you can make is stepping back so you can come back stronger. I always say the comeback is always greater than the setback. All right, so we talked about why always saying yes is draining and what happens when you keep pushing past your limits. But let's be real for a second. How do you actually start saying no? Because I know some of you are thinking, yeah, okay, guy, that sounds great, but in real life, saying no isn't that easy. I get it. It wasn't easy for me either. So here's some things that might help. You ever notice how when you say no, we feel like we have to follow it up with a whole story? Like I can't be there tonight because work is crazy, or I have this thing going on later, or I just don't have the energy right now. But honestly, the truth is, you don't owe anybody an explanation. Just saying I can't today, that's enough. You don't have to justify it. You don't have to over explain it. No is just a good complete sentence. So, here's my challenge to you this week. Say no to one thing that's draining you. And when you do it, pay attention to how it feels. Because at first, yeah, it might feel uncomfortable. But over time, you're going to realize that saying no to the wrong things gives you the time and energy to say yes to the things that actually matter. So before we wrap up, I just want to say a big thank you to all of you for tuning in. Your support means a lot. If you find so, as I was saying, I just want to say a big thank you to all of you for tuning in. Your support means a lot. If you found this episode helpful, or you know, if you took something from it, please feel free to share it with someone who might take benefit from it. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes. Take care, and I'll see you next time.